Happy Earth Day! Facebook Live for Saturday, April 22nd, 2017. This is take two. For people that were watching a few seconds ago, I don't know what happened, but suddenly a message popped up. Your video is ended. Do you want to delete it? I did, and we're starting over. And if it deletes this time, we're done. So I guess I'll try and make this quick, although this today really begs for a non-quick video because it is a fun and hilarious topic, thanks to Earth Day, which I'm going to talk about fear-based marketing. Does fear-based marketing work? And we have an amazing example, perhaps the best example today, of using fear to get a point across, which is the whole environmental conservation, global climate change, whatever you want to call it, movement. I mean, they are more hysterical than just about anybody, about any topic, any issue, and unless you think that that's something new, I'm going to share with you, dating back to the very first Earth Day, amazingly, ridiculously hysterical predictions that were spectacularly incorrect and not even close to ever coming about. So when you look back at the nonsense being put forth today on Earth Day, and you look back in 20, 30 years, or if you have any kind of non-brainwashed mind at all, you can look back right now and just realize that they are hysterically ridiculous. So the question that we're going to discuss today is, does based marketing work to get a message across, to persuade people, to get people to take action and to do something? Does using fear work? Now the answer is yes, but there's a right way, a wrong way to do it. And for those of you that were here in the beginning or watching on the replay and saw my ironic use of the Richard Nixon, he actually did it like this, but it wouldn't show up in the video, the double V, or in this case, double two for the 22nd, the connection. Richard Nixon was the president when the very first Earth Day took place in 1970. So before I get into today's hysterics, well, let's list some of the hysterics of today's environmental, climate change, global warming, fanatical hysterics that are going on. And of course, I don't know them all because I can't possibly pay attention to the ridiculousness of it, although I do know some people who are making a killing off of it, getting tons of government grants, and they have, of course, confided to me that they know it's bogus, but they're not going to say anything. In fact, you practically, they tell me that you practically want to have your conclusion all prepared just to get the grant and the funds to therefore do the science and the experiments to see if the entire planet is really in danger. And that's how you get tons of money from the government. And they're just hoping that now that there's a new sheriff in town who is on to the con and the game and the nonsense and is not in favor of redistributing all of our taxpayers or lots of our taxpayer money to charlatans who are making ridiculous assumptions and predictions. Things that are absolutely loony, that anyone with a brain can't possibly believe, like the science is settled. Like, no, in fact, science is far from settled, or 97% of climate scientists agree, or you hear that, not this 97. First of all, the whole 97 thing is bogus. And I could post links here into the comments, maybe I will, about, I know I've read plenty of articles about the facts behind that 90, with that 97 thing. First of all, I don't think there's anything technically known as a climate science. I remember the article particularly, but of course it wasn't 97% of them agree on anything. So that's more nonsense, non-thinking, just pablum repeating, spitting out the, towing the line of like, yeah, because it is warm and fuzzy, is it not? I mean, it just sounds great to say, like, if we just do X, then we can do something crazy. Like, if I wear Nikes, then I can slam dunk like Michael Jordan. And if when I was a kid, if I wore PF Flyers, I would run faster and jump just because I had those $10 sneakers on. It's the same thing. If we just, stop flying jets and driving in cars, then lo and behold, we'll save the planet. I mean, it just sounds so spectacularly awesome and simple and great if that were really the case. But of course, it is not even close to being the case. And I will get into the examples from 40 whatever years ago, about in 1970. So that's 47 years ago. And we will conjecture as to what we would think about today's nonsense hysterical claims looking back 47 or as I said, you can look back 47 minutes from now and realize most of them are hysterical. So I will post this link into the comments, but come on, I just got to read a few because they're so much fun. So here's a list of 18 claims made by some group or the sponsors or the organizers of the, or the whatever, of the very first Earth Day in April 22nd, 1970. And this was, all right, I'll put the link in, but this is, predictions from the scientific community compiled by somebody here. 18 predictions made on April 22nd, 1970. Number one, Harvard biologist. Ooh, definitely, I mean, Harvard, he's got the credential. The science has got to be settled on what he says. He's a Harvard biologist named George Wolf. That, quote, civilization will end within 15 or 30 years, which is, I don't know, what's that, 20 to 30 years ago? Whatever, unless immediate action is taken against problems facing mankind. So I guess the conclusion is there must have been immediate actions taken against the problems facing mankind, even though, of course, they weren't when you see some of the problems that they thought and the actions that need to be taken. So number two is a quote from Washington University by Barry Commoner in the Earth Day issue of the scholarly journal Environment. And he said, quote, we're in an environmental crisis which threatens the survival of this nation and of the world as a suitable place of human habitation. Whole world is ending. People are just going to absolutely disappear, which is actually another one of these. Number four, population, this is a quote, population will inevitably and completely outstrip whatever small increases in food supplies we make, said Paul Ehrlich in Mademoiselle magazine in April 1970. The death rate will increase until at least 100 to 200 million people per year will be starving to death during the next 10 years. Pretty sure that didn't happen. Most of the people who are going to die in the greatest cataclysm in the history of man have already been born, same guy said in 1969. By 1975, some experts feel that food shortages will have escalated the present level of world hunger and starvation into famines of unbelievable proportions. Other experts, more optimistic, think the ultimate food population collision will not occur until the decade of the 1980s. Very, very optimistic there. Another one, and I could just go out. These are, I mean, it's just totally crazy here. Like between 1980 and 1989, 4 billion people will perish in the, quote, great die-off. Okay. Number seven, it's already too late to avoid mass starvation, said Dennis Hayes, the chief organizer for Earth Day, in the spring 1970 issue of The Living Wilderness. So it was already too late to avoid mass starvation in 1970. What is it now? On and on and on. Here's one, number 10, ecologist Kenneth Watt told Time magazine that the rate of nitrogen buildup over time before light will be filtered out of the atmosphere and none of our land will be usable. Since it's only a matter of time, I guess they're all going to tell you that that's still going to come true. Barry Commoner, number 11, that decaying organic pollutants would use up all of the oxygen in America's rivers, causing freshwater fish to suffer. Clearly, that must have happened. I must have missed it, but here's one. Ecologist Kenneth Watt declared by the year 2000, if present trends continue, so there's the weasel clause, I guess they'll tell you it didn't, we will be using up crude oil at such a rate that there won't be any more crude oil. You'll drive up to the pump and say, fill her up, buddy, and he'll say, I am very sorry, there isn't any. First of all, consumption has increased, of course, and we're nowhere near running out of anything. And scientists will always come up with ways to get, more fuel-efficient cars and more fuel-efficient drilling and ways of coming up and alternative energy and like all this doom and gloom. It's just so out there. Okay, here's one. Paul Ehrlich again. More than 9/10 of the original tropical rainforest will be removed in most areas within the next 30 years or so. It is expected that half of the organisms in these areas will vanish with it. So 9/10 of the original tropical rainforest will be removed in most areas in the next 30 years, which means by the year 2000, which of course did not occur. Number 18, Kenneth Watt warned about a pending ice age. Global cooling, I guess you got to call that one. Quote, the world has been chilling sharply for about 20 years, like 20 years matters. Or these people today that go, oh, the last 15 years have been warm, like that matters in the history of the earth. The world has been chilling sharply for about 20 years. If present trends continue, there's the weasel clause again, of course, It's not a trend. It's 20 years in the history of the planet. If present trends continue, the world will be about 4 degrees cooler global mean temperature in 1990, but 11 degrees cooler in the year 2000. This is about twice what it would take to put us into an ice age. So I must have missed that ice age, and I must have missed the fact that it was 11 degrees cooler in the year 2000. But of course now they're going to tell you hysterically that it's getting too hot. We have global warming, although when global warming kind of became obvious that that's nonsense. Now it's called climate change. And 47 years or 47 minutes or 47 days from now, we'll see what they call it when it's obvious to a lot more people than just those who about it rationally, instead of being just brainwashed and jumping on the bandwagon of nonsense, that there's no climate change that man is causing and man can change, and hysterically crazy. And so here's the point. Fear-based marketing, fear in your messaging, in your attempts to influence people. Clearly it works. Okay, it works every 4 years or every 2 years to get lots of people elected in the United States. So we see that all the time. You see it in all kinds of marketing. Let's go back to FedEx. You know, we guarantee it'll be there overnight. That's hitting the fear that you have that if you don't send it by FedEx, you send it any other way, it's not guaranteed. It may not get there on time. You know, I have some fear, but if I use FedEx, my fear goes away and I know it's going to be there. And so on and on and on. There's a lot of fear, especially anytime there's a deadline or there's a short supply. Like if you buy tickets to a concert and it's announced, you know, at Friday morning at 9 a.m., tickets to the concert, and at Friday morning at 9:06 a.m., they're all sold out. So next time you hear an announcement, boy, you better run to your computer or your phone and call whoever or type in something, and you better get those tickets immediately or you're going to miss out. Clearly that works. Then, of course, the next day, the promoter says, oh, what do you know? We have miraculously added a second show. So, of course, they had 2 shows planned, but they wanted to use that fear-based, oh, it's going to sell out, you better act quickly, because do you think miraculously they just changed the whole tour and suddenly a date opened up in between going from Podunk to Milwaukee to Cleveland or whatever? No, of course, that was all planned, but they said, we're not just going to say there's 4 days of tickets for Cleveland, we'll say there's 1. Then we'll say there's 1 more. And then we'll say, unbelievably, we've opened up 1 more. And then finally, there's just 1 more. And every single time, they got people to act immediately. So fear does work. But here's the danger, and you see it in the Earth Day, in the, you know, hysterical, the polar ice caps are melting in 4 years. I mean, now here's a clue to it, right? The leaders of this whole climate change, hysterical BS movement, whatever you want to call it, are not scientists, not even close to it. They're simply good persuaders, good actors. Here you have Leonardo DiCaprio, excellent actor, acting, he knows how to act as if the world is ending and get people to actually believe that nonsense. You have Al Gore, obviously excellent at persuasion. He ran for office and won, ran for president, won the popular vote. This guy is a great persuader. Doesn't know a shred of thing about science, of course. I mean, I think read some article, he took 1 science class in college and flunked it or came close to flunking it and got a courtesy passing grade or something. Like, the guy is this thing for a scientist, but is he opportunistic and smart? Yeah. He said, man, I can make a lot of money, which he has and will continue to do because people can continue to buy into his BS, that like I can just alarm people with hysteria that the polar ice caps are going to melt and the earth is going to end and this and that and the hoo-ha and whatever all these people actually believe. They're marching all over the place today. They really believe this crap, and he makes a ton of money from it. And so do lots of other people, but not a scientist. So aren't they skeptical at all when the leaders of this movement and today they're like marching for science as if there's a human being alive who says, I'm against science? Like they're not marching for science, they're marching for their version or their interpretation, their hysterical interpretation of what they want to say the science is settled, when of course it's not, but it's their hysterical viewpoint. And so of course, what a great way to put it, to say we're in favor of science, because who could argue with that? You couldn't, if in fact it was settled science or even close to it, or it even made sense at all. So here's the deal. You use fear in your marketing, and certainly it works, gets people to take action, but you cannot overdo it. That's the danger. That's how to do it wrong, like these climate hysterics are doing with their polar ice caps are melting and the polar bears will be gone and all this nonsense about the whole earth will be gone. And air pollution is certainly going to take hundreds of thousands of lives in the next 5 years alone. That was Paul Ehrlich again in 1970. This guy obviously was a genius. 200,000 Americans would die in 1973 during, quote, smog disasters in New York and Los Angeles. Now, of course, you can answer and say, well, the EPA was created and they put in abatement plans, and so, that avoided that catastrophe. But, basically, you can't do that with all 18 of these. You can't do that with everything you're saying today. There are not more hurricanes. The East and West Coast are not under a foot of water. All that nonsense is just pure nonsense when you look at it, but it sounds great. And if you scare people right, you can get them on your side and get them to take action. But if you overdo it, like these hysterics of today, the DiCaprios and the Al Gores, and they're overdoing it and being ridiculous, if you do that in your marketing with fear, you will sound like them and it will fail. You will sound manipulative, pretty much insulting to anyone with a brain if you overuse fear. And you'll sound fake. I mean, like you're using it as a cheap tactic, like they are. I mean, if Al Gore came out, or DiCaprio, or any of these other charlatans came out and just said, hey, we might want to look into the fact that, like, it's possible that there's some damage being done to the air, because of course everyone would believe that. Of course, smokestacks belching black fumes into the air can't be great. And everybody wants clean air and everyone wants clean water, but over-regulating like crazy and killing business and killing incomes of people just to save some obscure species of something, but therefore having a drought in Los Angeles and killing lots of people or having a water shortage, that's just pure hysterical stupidity. So you run the danger if you overuse fear to the hysterical point. You can learn this lesson from today's DiCaprios and what's his name, Al Gores of the world, who are way off the deep end, hysterical, just stupid, basically, just saying stupid stuff. Similar to this, and I'll post the link to this article, which is just filled with all kinds of incendiary, and what ends up, as you look back, although if you had any intelligence, you had to be able to look forward at the time and go, this is stupid stuff too, just like you're hearing today. So don't do that in your marketing. Don't go overboard. You will be insulting. You will seem like you're using a cheap tactic. You will seem manipulative, and people will not respond, just like people with a brain that think independently and do what you're supposed to do with science, which is not say it's settled. You're supposed to constantly question it. Anyone that says the science is settled is pretty much admitting their science is wrong, and they're afraid of anyone doing any more experiments or challenging it. Sounds pretty much like, didn't they, burn people at the stake in 500-700 years ago because they said the earth was not the center of the universe? Like, no, that's settled. That's dogma. That you have to believe, or else we kill you, because we cannot have you saying that stuff. Like now, they don't kill people that have a brain and realize that the DiCaprios and Gores of the world are spouting all kinds of hysterical nonsense. They don't kill them. In fact, the opposite. This is America. We're entitled to free speech. They can say anything they want. Do you have to believe it and follow it? That's up to you. Do you use it in your marketing? Also up to you. So if you're going to use it wisely. Use it intelligently. Don't say stupid things like the science is settled when of course it's not. Or to say cataclysmic, hysterical things like half the planet's going to be wiped out in 3 years. Or, if you don't buy my product, you're going to die. It's just you're way overboard, and you're going to fail if you have an audience that has any intelligence at all. Now, if you have an audience that is so well brainwashed, I mean, here's an exception. You have this audience, these Earth Day environmental maniacs that are apparently so easily misled by an actor and a politician who have, know nothing about science to believe that what they're talking about science makes sense, then I guess I'm wrong. You could get away with it even if you're hysterical. They certainly do. Al Gore sells a lot of tickets to his movies. He has made like over $100 million since leaving office. So maybe it does work. I just suggest don't overdo it. Be sensible. Use fear. It definitely works. We're all afraid of missing out on something. We're afraid of not having something. We're afraid of something bad happening. I just suggest you don't overdo it, because you sound like an idiot. And for a great example, just see any clips. I haven't turned on the news today, but if you see any clips of any speeches from Earth Day today, I'll bet They are all great examples of hysterical stupidity, of going overboard in using fear to get people to take action. And as a result, do you think, I guess I'll close with this, do you think that whatever all the crazy, ridiculous things were said at Earth Day today is going to convince anyone that they think they're trying to convince to take any action that they want? Of course not. It's going to, of course, rile up their supporters, their believers. All right, did come back on. I'm going to call it and end it there. So use fear, use it wisely, don't overdo it. Great example of overdoing it is today, what you'll see on Earth Day, that's not convincing anybody that's not already on their side to do anything, because they're hysterically ridiculous and will eventually be proven wildly, incredibly wrong. Right now, you just have to be a thinking person to realize they're wrong. In the future, it'll be proven that they're wrong. You don't want to be the same way running your business. Very good. Thanks for joining me here on Saturday, April 22nd, 2017, Earth Day. Steve Sipress. I'm going to click the button here, and I will say over and out. Thanks for joining me.